You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. As Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. A white Fort Worth, Texas police officer who shot and killed a black woman over the weekend, he is no longer with the force. He resigned today, but the police chief there said he did so before he was going to get fired. Atatiana Jefferson was in her home shortly after 2 a.m. on Saturday night when a neighbor, James Smith, called police non-emergency number concerned and asked for a welfare check because he noticed her door had been open since around 10 p.m. He called to make sure she was all right. Unfortunately, she is dead. Of course, it was a tragic shooting that took place over the weekend. Police did not wait long to release the body cam footage that took place. We're about to show you this body cam footage. Warning you right now, it of course is graphic. We want to warn you, if you want to turn away, that's fine, go right ahead and do so. But this is what took place in Fort Worth shortly after 2 a.m.
Put your hands up. Show me your hands.
Aaron Dean on the police force, not even 2 years, never identified himself. He was standing outside of the home, fired through the window, killing Atatiana Jefferson. She was in her home, and she was playing video games with her nephew. Today, Fort Worth Police and the city's mayor and the city manager moved very quickly after lots of protests that took place over the past 24 hours to address this issue. This was their news conference.
Today, Mayor Price is going to give initial statements, followed by Chief Krause, who will give an update on the investigation. And David Cook will have a brief statement after that. If y'all would hold your questions until the end, then we will be able to take some questions of any of the three that you'd like to ask questions to. With that, we'll go ahead and introduce Mayor Price.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here. We wanted to take this opportunity to talk a little bit about Saturday night, Saturday morning, what happened, and Mrs. Jefferson's death. But before Chief and City Manager speak, I wanted to say a few things to my city. We are all heartbroken today. Atatiana was a beautiful, smart, amazing young woman, by all accounts, who was unjustly taken from her family. The entire city is in pain. As a mother, a grandmother, a sister, an aunt, I can't imagine anything worse, and I'm so sorry. On behalf of the entire city of Fort Worth, I'm sorry. To Atatiana's family, it's unacceptable. There is nothing that could justify what happened on Saturday morning. Nothing. To Mr. James Smith, I know you're hurting today as well. You called police as we ask good neighbors to do. You were being that wonderful neighbor, the one that we all want next door to us, the type of person who does what's right in Fort Worth. Atatiana's death has left you totally shaken and your sense of security and trust in law enforcement jeopardized. And I'm sorry. To Atatiana's nephew, who witnessed the unspeakable loss, sorry doesn't cut it. The entire city needs to surround this young man with prayers, support, and anything that his family needs. Lastly, the images released showing the gun inside Ms. Jefferson's home. The gun is irrelevant. She was in her own home, caring for an 8-year-old nephew. Atatiana was a victim. She was taken from her family in circumstances that are truly unthinkable. I'm listening and hearing our community, my home. There's heartbreak, but healing and renewal of trust will come. It'll take a significant amount of work from all of us, and it must be done day by day, a step at a time, action by action, and it won't stop until we have justice and closure for Atatiana's family, to rebuild a sense of trust for the community and with our police department. Mere words are not enough. We are taking immediate action. You will hear from the chief and city manager in a few moments. City leadership has set in place motions to bring a third-party panel of national experts to review this department. City Manager Cook will have more specifics for you in a minute. I would say, act justly, love mercy, walk humbly. Those words from scriptures are short and poignant on a day like today. Our community is mourning and hurting. Everyone expects justice, no matter how you define justice. This council, this city, and this police department will live humbly and provide the justice. Justice is critical here. We know we cannot bring back this young woman who was taken all too soon. But this is a pivotal moment for a city that will and can come together. And we will take actions swiftly and with transparency. Thank you all for caring. Let's wrap this family in love and prayers. Chief Krause.
Thank you, Mayor. Before I provide an update, I'd first like to extend my sincerest sympathies to the family of Atatiana Jefferson. Her father called this shooting senseless, and I certainly have not been able to make sense of why she had to lose her life. On behalf of the men and women of the Fort Worth Police Department, I'm so sorry for what occurred. You, Atatiana's family and friends, have my apologies, my condolences, and my prayers. We've received many calls from the community expressing their concerns and demands, and I assure you as chief of this department, I share those concerns and I demand a thorough, transparent, and speedy investigation. This will not be an opportunity for us to make excuses, but rather to investigate this case to the fullest, to provide the justice we all seek for Atatiana. Our officer-involved shootings are investigated by both our major case unit, which investigates the criminal aspect of the case, and our internal affairs unit, which investigates administrative policy and training violations. These investigations occur concurrently but separately. I will outline where we are with both investigations at this point. The Internal Affairs Unit responded to the scene of the shooting. Their role is to observe the on-scene investigation, but they take a back seat to the criminal investigation being conducted by the Major Case Unit. The officer who shot Atatiana was served his written administrative complaint on Sunday. At that time, he was also placed on detached duty and stripped of his badge and firearm. My intent was to meet with him today to terminate his employment with the Fort Worth Police Department. However, the officer tendered his resignation this morning before we met. Even though he no longer works for the city, we will continue the administrative investigation as if he did. The case will be completed and reviewed by the chain of command. Had the officer not resigned, I would have fired him for violations of several policies, including our use of force policy, our de-escalation policy, and unprofessional conduct. A statement to that effect will be placed within the investigation to serve as a written record of that determination. Additionally, the separation paperwork that is sent to the state licensing agency, the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement, will reflect that he was dishonorably discharged from employment with the Fort Worth Police Department. Now that the officer is resigned, he no longer has the protections of state civil service law. Therefore, I can now release his name. Aaron Dean, ID 4598, was the officer who responded to the call and fired the shot that killed Atatiana. He was hired by the department on August 21st, 2017, and commissioned as a licensed peace officer on April 13th, 2018. Despite his resignation, the officer still faces criminal charges from the major case investigation. I've personally checked on the progress of that case repeatedly, and I anticipate a substantial update to provide you no later than tomorrow. Additionally, we have also presented a preliminary case to the FBI to review the officer's actions for possible civil rights violations. None of this information can ease the pain of Atatiana's family, but I hope it shows the community that we take these incidents seriously. We will continue to provide updates as they become available. Thank you.
As stated by both Mayor Price and Chief Krause, my thoughts and prayers go out to Ms. Jefferson's family. Atatiana's death should not have happened, and on behalf of the city of Fort Worth, I am truly sorry. The community has called for independent review of the police department. I would like to take a minute to provide an update on our process to bring on an independent police monitor, and that was a recommendation by the Race and Culture Task Force and approved by the City Council through the city's recently adopted budget. We are on track to having candidates for the position in Fort Worth for interviews in November. As part of the process, we were working on having a third-party group of national experts come in to review current police policies and training practices to ensure best practices are in place as the monitor begins his or her work. The city manager's office will take the lead in this effort, and of course, it will include the participation of the police department. Currently, we are reaching out to experts in the field, and once we finalize our plan and recommendation, we'll be presenting that to the city council in the next few weeks. Thank you.
Part of the city's news conference, activists and the family of the woman who was killed, they actually held their own news conference.
Civil rights attorney for the family. You're going to be hearing from members of the community of Fort Worth. You'll be hearing from the family of who they affectionately call Tay Jefferson. And we'll be taking some time to answer some questions for you all. I want to go ahead and dispel the myth that this is somehow a one-off, that this was just a bad luck incident from an otherwise sound department. The Fort Worth Police Department is on pace to be one of the deadliest police departments in the United States. They're in need of serious, systematic reform. We are asking that the federal government comes in, the Department of Justice comes in and takes a conscious look at the policies and procedures that allowed something like this tragedy to happen. This was a wellness call. It's beyond me to begin to understand what kind of police force responds to a wellness call with the equivalent of SWAT. This department and their officers violated not only the rights of Tay Jefferson and her family, but they just made common sense mistakes. They passed an open door. They failed to announce themselves. They passed a second open door. They failed to announce themselves. They creeped around the back of the apartment and entered a closed gate. They didn't have probable cause at this point, from what the neighbor told them, to even enter that property. They began creeping around and they created a deadly situation. The idea that they have blasted images of a firearm across the internet is obscene. Of course, a family owns a firearm. Of course, firearms are used to protect individuals from predators, prowling about their property. That's only common sense. They created a deadly situation, and they responded in a way that is not unique to the city of Fort Worth. In the last 6 months, they've had 10 officer-involved shootings, seven officer-involved deaths. That's more than most nations for a single city in Texas. It represents a serious problem that must be addressed. So, of course, this family is calling for the firing of this officer. That's benign. That's the least we should expect. They're calling for this officer to be vigorously prosecuted, to be appropriately sentenced. That prosecution, the investigation, should be handled by someone other than the Fort Worth Police Department, specifically the Department of Justice, the FBI, or worst case scenario, the local sheriff's department. Anyone other than the city of Fort Worth who is clearly incompetent to investigate itself should be called in. We expect this to happen immediately. This happened Saturday. Why this man is not in handcuffs right now is a source of continued agitation for this family and for this community, and it must be addressed. In a moment, you'll hear.
All right, folks, the police department, even though the police chief spoke at that news conference with the mayor as well as the city manager, they held their own news conference. All right, folks, and so let me, well, first I thought we had the police department's news conference. Let's go to a couple of folks who are in Fort Worth. It's first off, we have, of course, Corey Hughes, community activist, as well as Pastor Rodney McIntosh. Corey, I want to start with you. Fort Worth's history. First of all, Fort Worth previously had a black police chief, and when they essentially fired him when he was seeking the Baltimore police commissioner's job. Here you have a situation where you've had multiple shootings take place. Now they're calling in monitors to or national experts to assess what's happening, what happened there. I mean, frankly, this should have happened before this fatal shooting.
Yeah, absolutely, Roland. I think, just to be quite frank with you, I've spoken to former Chief Joel Fitzgerald a couple of times. And the reality is one of the reasons that they wanted to push him out is because I think in his own way he realized that he was fighting against a system that has been in place in the city of Fort Worth for a very long time. Anybody that knows anything about Fort Worth, Texas knows it's the good old boy system. That is not very favorable to African Americans. We were extremely surprised when they brought in the black chief.
Looks like Corey's video has frozen. Is Pastor Rodney? There we go. Okay, now we have you back. Go ahead, Corey. Your video froze there.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. And so, yeah, they just really, Fitzgerald was really trying his best to make changes. He wasn't perfect, but I think he was trying to do his best for our community in the situation that he was in. And so they quickly got rid of him because he was holding their feet to the fire as it relates to some of the tactics that they use, the policing tactics that have been inbred in this department for a very long time.
Pastor McIntosh. Folks, I can barely hear Pastor McIntosh. Go ahead, start again. Go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you. Go ahead.
I say I too kind of feel the way Corey feels growing up in this city and seeing the same old pattern year after year. It's troubling. In all actuality, man, this has probably been one of the most bloodiest summers that we've had, and to literally know that there's been that many shootings and that many killings just in 1 year, and to know that since the African-American chief has left, we've had 6 or 7 killings or 6 or 7 shootings. Man, it's troubling, and for our community, it seems like we actually don't have a win. If we call the police to help us, we could still end up killed. So we're at this place that we're trying to find out which way do we go, because we can no longer trust the police in this city. So as a people, we have to do other things. And the thing that troubles me is even when they talk about the police oversight and the monitor, it's not going to do us any good if the police monitor actually has to be somebody that's employed by the city. We've been fighting to try to get them to hire somebody or allow us to have subpoena power as a community, yet that's something that they're not willing to do. So even with them bringing in those monitors, it still leaves our hands tied. So I agree this is something that should have been done. Actually, I believe Jaquavian was shot. It was something that should have been done or something that should have been looked at. So I feel like, man, we several lives too late.
Corey, I'm quite familiar, obviously, with Fort Worth. I spent time 2.5 years as a City Hall reporter of the Fort Worth Star-Telegram in the early to mid-'90s. When we talk about what is next, obviously the city moved quickly to move to fire this officer. He resigned before he could be fired. But still, what's troubling is he hasn't been charged yet. I mean, the police chief said that they're pursuing charges, but if you have enough evidence to fire a guy, how do you not have enough evidence to charge him? Now, indictment by the DA, by the grand jury, is totally different, but to not charge him. Corey, go ahead. Looks like we froze. We call Pastor McIntosh. Just want to get your thoughts there. That the officer has not been arrested yet.
Yes, I know, and that also is amazes me or bothers me, because I agree with you. If you have enough evidence to fire, or if you can actually, even at the press conference, admit that he done something wrong, I'm trying to find out why he has not been charged either. But not only were we bothered about the fact that now he has not been charged, I'm also bothered by the fact that it took him this long to release his name, to release his identity, because in all actuality, I've spoken and I told him if somebody in our community would have did what he did, we would have knew all of that information within hours. So we got to find out what we can do to change these policies and these laws that allow them to be protected the way they are. Because he should have never been given the opportunity to resign. He should have been fired the next day, and he should have already been charged with murder. And I say murder because I don't want them to try to tell us that it was manslaughter, it was an accident. Man, you cannot come to somebody else's house and shoot in the window not knowing who you shooting at and take a life and expect us to continue to allow this to go on. So I totally agree with you. I wonder why he's not been charged with murder. And as a leader in our community, man, we're going to continue to fight and be consistent in our fight until we see them literally charge him with murder. And we're going to have to put pressure on our DA, too, because in all actuality, Fort Worth is a city that is not known for actually pressing charges against the Fort Worth Police Department.
All right, then. Pastor McIntosh, Corey Hughes, we certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much for joining us. I'm sure we'll be talking to you more in the next few days. We want to introduce our panel right now. Dr. Avis Jones-DeWeaver, political strategist, as well as leadership strategist. Also, Julianne Malveaux, Dr. Julianne Malveaux, economist, president emerita at Bennett College. Julian Boykin, founder and chairman, Young Republicans of Southern Maryland. Avis, when you see this story, a phenomenal young woman, Xavier University graduate, at home, enjoying just a night with her nephew. And you heard the mayor talk about it, but this young man has to live with what he witnessed.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I watched some of the family's press conference today, and it was heartbreaking to hear that her little nephew was in the room the entire time. They both heard noises outside. He wanted to look in the window, and she stopped him to go look in the window to investigate. And that's when she was murdered. And he witnessed the entire thing. This little 8-year-old boy will never get over that. Never. And I don't understand why they've not only allowed this person to resign versus fire him, but as you've mentioned, now he's a free man. He can be anywhere. What's stopping him from leaving the state and fleeing? He needs to be arrested. He needs to be in jail now, because this was nothing but cold-blooded murder.
Julian, this cop, Aaron Dean, former cop, joined the force April 2018. I mean, and so when you think about that, and when you watch that video, at no point does he yell police.
No.
I mean, he never identifies himself. And if you're this woman, who the hell is outside of my house with a flashlight and a gun pointing into my home?
Roland, 3 things. Number 1, we need to look at who is on the police forces. You have these people, he's young, which is not an excuse, but he's been there a year. He obviously has not been trained because he doesn't have any sense. How do you do that? That's one, just a whole notion of police training. Number 2, Sister girl was in her own self home. I'm bleeding, really, when I saw this. I was bleeding about this. And what I'm thinking is that why did he, within less than 30 seconds, shoot?
It was actually about
4
6 seconds.
Without identifying himself.
Yeah.
So, that, again, it's a training thing, but also the bias thing. And the number 3, as Avis has said, this young boy, this 8-year-old who watched his aunt being massacred, what will we do for him? So there's just so much here to talk about, but not really to talk about, but to really deal with. And then, Roland, oftentimes we talk about these police shootings, we talk about black men. This is an opportunity to talk about the many ways that black women are massacred. And I say this in the name of Mary Turner, lynched in 1919 because she stood up because her husband was lynched. And she was lynched. There's so, we had all these lynchings.
First of all, you didn't got to go to lynch. You don't go to lynching. Rakia Boyd, shot and killed by Dante Servant in Chicago.
Yeah.
She gets shot in the head. They don't charge him properly. He walks. Ayanna Jones in Detroit, exact same thing happened there. And so, Julian, there are a number of these incidences. But still, what is common here is whether it's a black woman or a black man, black is the most common thing when it comes to these cops. And when they, and again, they see us and it's shoot first.
Right.
Yes.
Then we'll deal everything. They will deal everything else later.
Yeah.
Julie, hold on 1 second. Julie, let me get you in.
I think it's something needs to be done about it. As a millennial, a lot of young people to the point now where it's like, hey, the worst that can happen is I die. The best thing that can happen is I kill a cop, I go to prison as a hero. I mean, it's getting to that point because, excuse me, you can't, you can't say, hey, let's put our faith in the legal system. As we see, the legal system is not doing what they're supposed to do, which is serve and protect. So when I see the video, I look at it like, okay, what did he see? I never heard the officer identify himself. I never heard the officer call for backup or anything. I just, what made the officer go snoop around the backyard? Normally, I thought the officer, they knock at your front door and tell someone.
Right, they never knock. They never knock. First of all, the video you're seeing right now, folks, pull it up. This is the graduation ceremony, I believe, when Aaron Dean graduated. And so that is him, him right here. The third person, the first person from the right, that is Aaron Dean. And the thing here is, again, when you look at, you talk about every single practice broken. Every single one here. Lee Merritt said it. You're entering property for no probable cause. Right. It's a wellness check. How do you not knock on the front door and say, anyone home? If we think back to the video of the black woman in Billings, Montana, same thing. Yeah. That was a door that was ajar, and the cops stepped in. I'm just not understanding at 2 o'clock in the morning, if they say a door is ajar, how is that not your first move? Now, this whole, what I did, you think if somebody's broken into, you're going to scare the robbers or whatever? And of course, the guy who called said it's been open since 10 o'clock. This is 2 a.m. That's 4 hours. Right. If the place got robbed, they're probably gone. No, I'm just saying they're probably gone.
True. Yeah. But Roland, the issue is that they went into a place where a black woman was, a black community, and did not do the appropriate warnings, which you would have done anywhere else. Put your hands up, I'm a police officer. No, the man never said he was a police. He just massacred that woman. Massacred her.
And you were outside the house, Ava.
Yes.
Wait a minute, you're outside the house firing into the house. And you don't know who the hell you're firing at.
You haven't.
And there's been no report that says a gun was raised. None of that.
That's
I'm just saying.
Exactly where I was going.
Nothing.
That's exactly where I was going. It is complete and utterly infuriating that the moment that they let this video out, which showed their incompetence, at the same time they released this picture of this gun that was supposedly found in her home. And I'm saying supposedly very intentionally, because we know that there are practices of police who keep extra guns in their cars all the time to plant in certain circumstances where they want to cover up what they did. But even if they didn't plant it, she has the right to own a gun and protect her home when she believes there are prowlers in her backyard. There is absolutely no excuse for what happened, and this man needs to be put under the jail right now.
Now the question is, again, what is he going to get charged with? That's going to be the question. Will it be murder? Will you see that? That's going to be the question. We'll see what happens. Now the move is on the police department. Will they actually arrest Aaron Dean and charge him? Will he also be indicted by the Tarrant County grand jury? Don't forget, this is the same county that sent Crystal Mason to jail for 5 years for illegal voting. Let's see what happens to this cop. All right, folks, back to that Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment. All right, folks, November 7th through the 11th, we're going to be in Cabo for the Luxe Jazz Experience, the second annual one. 14 different acts will be performing, including Gerald Albright, of course, over 3 days. If you want to attend, of course, go to LifeLuxeJazz.com, LifeLuxeJazz.com. But if you cannot make it, you can get your live streaming pass for $10.99 by going to GFNTV.com. That's GFNTV.com. Folks like Mark Curry, again, Gerald Albright, Alex Bouillon, Raul Madan, Incognito, Pieces of a Dream, Kirk Whalum, Average White Band, Donnie McClurkin, Shalea, Roy Ayers, Tom Brown, Ronnie Laws, Ernest Quarles. We all performing. It's going to be an amazing time, and trust me, you want to check it out. And so, if you want to get the live stream, you simply go to GFNTV.com. That's GFNTV.com to get the live stream pass for those 3 days. All right, folks, now back to your Roland Martin Unfiltered video.